Hi guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Stop Scrolling and Start Sketching. I can't believe it's only been 2 weeks and our sketchbooks are already getting super full. Now, some of the ideas from last week gave me a little idea for this week, but I want to go back to our real-time sketch along like we did in episode 1. So I'm just going to start by drawing out a circle shape. I just traced round an old pot that I've got. But just before I work on this page, which is going to be my final design, I'm just going to sketch out a couple of random circle shapes over here just really quickly, and I'm gonna see what I kind of feel works composition wise. So my idea is that we paint some kind of form of flowery meadow, but with these toadstools or mushrooms around the outside of it, and that all of our plants and flowers kind of curve outside the circle. So I'm just going to try and work out where maybe the best placement for some of these mushrooms are. So I've doodled a few little layouts over here, and I actually think I like the more cluttered one, although this one with just the 3 mushrooms and 1 big mushroom is a really close second. I want to work in coloured pencils today just because I think it's probably something that everybody can find lying about their house. Or, I tend to find that even the sort of cheaper brands of colour pencils do pretty well. So I don't think it's an expensive art supply to go and get. These are my Faber-Castell polychromos. So these are super expensive coloured pencils, but you do not need to go to that extreme. You can just get some cheaper coloured pencils. I've bought quite a few cheaper brands coloured pencils recently, and they've all worked super well. So we're just going to use coloured pencils today and nothing else, just because, like I say, I think that is probably something that is very accessible to lots of people. I'm just going to sketch in roughly where I think the mushrooms are going to be, and I'm just using my mechanical pencil for this, and I am going out the lines of that circle or this circle. That's okay. I just think that this could be a really fun little cute design. I should also apologize. I am absolutely loaded with a cold and a throat infection at the moment, so if I sound a little bit husky, that is the reason. I'm just marking in a couple of bigger leaves and branches that I might want coming on the outside of this circle, just so I can get an idea about placement and where things might go. Again, this is a step that you can skip. You can absolutely just go straight in with your coloured pencils if you wish. I am just going to go in with a see, it's because I'm not feeling well. I'm just going to go in with a few shades of blue, and I'm just going to build up lots of light layers round about where the sky might come down. Again, this is just a little fun sketchbook page. I'm not overly worried about getting this perfect, getting lots of strength of color. We can build up the strength of color in lots of little layers. So I'm going to start off lighter than I think I need to be, and then build up some extra layers. I really want these little sessions to be fully accessible to everybody. Even if you think you can't draw, or you've been told you can't draw. Oh my goodness, I was told so often when I was at art college that, you know, I couldn't draw, I couldn't paint, I was really bad with color. And, you just, somebody in authority is telling you that. So you just believe it and you don't try then. And I just think that it doesn't matter what you produce when you sit down to sketch and create and paint and do anything that's creative, baking, gardening. It doesn't matter what the final result is. It's about the process. It's about switching your brain off, totally just being in the moment, relaxing, not worrying about the final result. And that is the great thing about a sketchbook. You kind of, it takes the pressure off. You don't feel like you need to produce this amazing finished piece. You can just doodle and scribble and color, and it doesn't matter how it turns out. It can turn out badly, and you don't need to show it to anybody. You can keep your little sketchbook just for you as a little private thing that you do to relax, to take your time. You can pre-do this sketch where it takes a little bit of concentration to decide where you're putting your mushrooms and things, and then you can just sit in front of your favorite TV show and color it in like, a kid's coloring book. Why not? Okay, I've got a little base of blue on here, and I want to start adding in little bits of grasses in the background. I have no clue how this is going to turn out. This could be an absolute disaster. I had just had this little idea from having done some of the circles last week, that I thought this would be really fun. I kind of love when art's got a circle and stuff goes off out the edges. So I'm just going in with a very light green, limey, dark yellow, very super light green color, and that's just my far away faded out grasses that are in the back. And the lovely thing about working in colored pencils is you get beautiful thin lines. It's not like when you're painting and you're trying to work with a paintbrush and get really, really thin lines. So I'm literally just drawing in grass the way we think grass might look, and I'm taking it up over that blue, and I'm going to go higher with a few more shades of green. So I'm just going to work from a light green and then work through to a dark green. And I apologize, I don't know why my Faber Castells are so out of color order. If my daughter was here, she would be incredibly stressed by the fact that these are not all beautifully lined up. So if you are watching this and it is triggering you because the pencils are not in the right order, then I can only apologize. Do you know what? I'm going to get my daughter Molly on it. She will sort this out. So remember, all of our grasses don't have to go straight up. We can have some that curve over, and we can even have ones that go the other way. They don't need to curve into the middle, although I do quite like having bits of grass that sort of vaguely come in the middle, and then randomly you can have one that goes the other way. And I'm just going to build up. Again, I've gone from a really light green, and now we're going in to a kind of mid-tone. This is a slightly more olivey tone. I've not decided what colours I'm using around the edge yet. I want to keep them quite kind of earthy, so I don't want to go for anything that seems too artificial with the greens. So this one looks more of a leaf green. That one's got a little bit too much blue in it. It looks a little bit too fake. So again, just adding in a few of these. As you do your layers, you're literally adding slightly less each time, apart from maybe down in this bottom bit where we do want it to actually get darker. Because the grasses are going to have a bit more air and space around them at the top, and they're going to get denser and darker at the bottom here. So we will be going in with a couple of really dark ones as well. And like I say, I'm trying to keep it quite earthy. So I'm going to go in now with a very muddy green, and we're going to get a lot of that in this base here so that it gets nice and dark. And then we will add a few blades of this in as well. And then we're going to use our little secret color. We've used this a couple of times now just to get a bit of a shadow effect. And that is, we'll go in with a dark blue just to get a little bit more depth into the base here. You will have noticed that I am trying to avoid these mushrooms because we're working in colored pencil. We can't really paint red over the top if we've gone green. So again, just a bit like coloring, trying to stay within the lines. It doesn't need to be perfect, does it? It's just a little sketch. So wiggling some horizontal lines in this green just to create a bit of ground and a little bit of shading underneath those mushrooms. And I'll maybe bring in some dark, this is a very, very dark green, like an emerald green, just to pop a little bit of brightness back into that kind of browny green. And then getting really dark at the base of the mushrooms. So making it darker shadows and just lighter. I'm just penciling lighter so that it fades out. Now, what would be an excellent dark blue? This is looking like a really good dark blue. And then I have a very, very almost black dark blue. Look, I clearly like that one for shading. But let's start with this slightly lighter one and just see how we go. I'm just gonna, yeah, see, it's not dark enough, is it? That's why this one has been used the most. Okay, so we're just going in with a few flicks. Not too many. I don't want to take it too dark. I still want to see all those beautiful paler yellow colors coming through. And then the tiniest little line of dark blue along that bottom edge of those mushrooms just to give us some shading. We might come back to this one. It's a good color. You can then work on top. So I'm going to go back to that lemon yellow, the kind of slightly greeny yellow, and you can always just put a little bit more pressure and just flick in a couple of little extra bits of that yellow just so that you can see it coming through. And I think that's like a really nice grassy base. So let's do some mushrooms next. I have got various shades of kind of grey brown. So I'm just going to start with a pale one. Oh, do you know what I should do? I should rub out these lines that are my circle that cut through my mushroom design. So this one and this one. Okay, because we don't want them showing. And anywhere the line of the taller mushroom was through the cap of the smaller mushroom there. So just rubbing those out. Colored pencils will cover a lot, but they might not cover everything. Okay, so we are just using this light browny gray color. Do you know, I would be, oh, it's called warm gray. I was going to say I would be surprised if it wasn't actually called mushroom, because it is pretty good mushroom stock color. So we're just going to give all of the mushrooms a quick going over with that. And I will definitely find something lighter to go under the gills, only in the spots that I can see the gills. And this is just a grey, so this is a cold grey now. And I just think because the gill bits are in shadow, then it's okay to make that a cooler colour. So that's why the cool grey is working well for these, because there would be bits of shadow under there. We're not going to make this super detailed though. It's just for fun. Let's go to the next stage of warm gray. This is slightly darker warm gray. And we're just going to add a little bit of shadow to those mushrooms. So underneath the cap of the mushroom would be slightly shady, and maybe along the bottom. You can also pick a single side of the mushroom. You can just put some random scribbles and lines on it to like make it look like it's got a bit of texture, because mushrooms aren't all solidly the one color, are they? So you can do anything you want. Just give it a little bit of color. You could go in with a little bit of brown as well. Again, just to add some variation to those stalks. Doesn't need to be realistic. We're just coloring. We've literally just drawn ourselves a coloring page, and now we're just coloring it in for fun. Right, I think before we do the tops of these mushrooms, because I think that's going to really make this piece pop, I'm going to take a dark brown and just do a few lines underneath here, because this biggest mushroom we can see the gills. It doesn't need to be perfect, and you might see a couple of gills on that one, but the rest are probably so small that you can't clearly see them. So we're just going for that and edging a couple of little bits. You can go over this, you know me, I like to go over it with black ink at the end, but you don't have to. You could go over it with just a darker color, even that really dark blue or an almost black or a really dark brown, just to pick out the edge and make it slightly more cartoony. Right, I am going to go in with a kind of leaf green, and I'm just going to make these stalks that I drew, just the couple that I picked out. I'm going to actually try and put some leaves on them. We might have to go quite dark with these leaves, but we'll see. We'll start with a lighter green, and then we'll build it up from there. So I'm just doing the traditional leaf shape. I'm trying to not make it too complicated. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to go a little bit darker green on some of these, but that's okay. And some of these aren't even going to have proper leaf shapes. They're just going to have little sort of seed heads on them. So I'm just going to color in a few little lines left and right on them so that they're not as defined as the ones that have actual leaf shapes. I'm just going to use this kind of spring green just to mark them in just now, and I'm definitely coming back with a darker green though so that we can see how it's going to shape up. You could do this in any art supplies, doesn't have to be colored pencil. This would also work really, really nicely in alcohol markers. Yay, you could, you know what? Let's super quickly fill in all of these and then do this dark green over the top of them. You can make it as realistic or as cartoony and as simple as you want. But alcohol markers would work super, super well with this kind of design. But just goes to show you don't need to have fancy art supplies. You don't need to feel like you've always got a crazy definite plan on how things are going to go. Honestly, when I started this, the only plan I had in my head was that I wanted to do a circle with mushrooms and grasses and flowers, and I wanted stuff to come outside of the circle. The rest, just kind of let your imagination develop the rest of it as you go. And just see what works. Okay, let's tackle these mushrooms. And oh, I know it's so cheesy, but I do love a mushroom that's got, or a toadstool that's got a spotty cap. So we're just going to mark in a few spots, and I'm just doing it in pencil since I've already done a pencil sketch. I kind of feel like I want to see the pencil lines underneath. I could have just marked them in with the colored pencils, but let's do, yeah, that looks good. Maybe one more there. Oh yeah, and actually, oh no, see, now I'm going crazy. Keep it under control. Don't overthink how many mushroom spots you add. Right, we are going to go in. I'm going to go in with an orangey red. Where is my best orangey red? There's so many reds in this set. I'm going to go in with an orangey red and keep the top half of these little mushrooms a bit lighter. They don't need to be, again, crazy detailed. You could just color them in a solid color. They don't even need to be red and white. I just feel like we've got so much green now in this background that obviously the red is going to really pop and contrast with that green. So that's why I'm just going in with the kind of traditional red and white here. I'm actually going to bring a proper orange into that. Sorry, all my red and oranges are all way down this side. And I'm just going to put a little bit of orange on top of that. That's my little cat meowing in the background, wanting some lunch. He thinks he's always hungry, but he never is. He doesn't usually get lunch, but he's meowing downstairs, waiting for a little snack. Right, we have got a little bit of orange on there too. So now I'm going to go in with a really rich dark red. Let's see, this one might be quite browny. This is quite browny, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this just to outline the bottom edge of all my mushrooms. And then we're going to go for a slightly more vibrant red, just so that we still get that nice bright color. So that one is quite browny. So let's go for a true bright red that it's a bit darker. There we go, perfect. So just going to go around those circles, leaving them white. My set does have a white colored pencil, but you don't need to use that to fill in your spots. You can just leave your paper shining through. So let's just get round all of those. Obviously with colored pencils, the lighter you press, the paler a color you'll get, and then the harder you press, the stronger a color you'll get. So that's another way to vary the color on your colored pencils. So I'm putting a fair bit of pressure on these just now because I want that really nice, strong red color on the base of these mushrooms. And I just think doing something as simple as giving these mushrooms here a couple of shades of red just really makes them pop and stand out a bit more than if you just colored them in the one shade of red. But it's totally up to you. If you sort of pre-drew out your design and then you were sitting in front of the TV or something and you wanted just to color it in for fun, then you can absolutely go for one shade of red. Doesn't need to be the full lot. And then I am just going to use this nice bright red with a bit of pressure just to finish outlining all of these mushroom caps. Just quite liking the fact that these leaves up here ended up kind of outlined in the dark green. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do now is I am going to go back in with my dark brown. Where's my really dark brown? There it is. I'm going to go back in with my dark brown, and I'm just going to kind of outline the base of the mushrooms with that dark brown, and I've outlined the mushroom caps with the red, and then we've got the green outline up here. So up on this sky, I think we'll just put in a little bit of a strong blue, and then I don't think I will need to grab out pen and ink to go back over that. I think just adding in the darker outlines with the colored pencil and maybe just getting back in to a little bit more shadow in here. You know what, we need a little bit of a green, a nice strong green, and we need just a few bits of grass coming over the base of these mushrooms just to really set them into the piece. Couple of little finishing touches. One last thing I think I will do is I've got this very nice pale cool grey, which is almost blue, and I'm just going to go into the white spots and just give them a bit of shadowing at the bottom of each white spot. So just a little bit of a blue shadow, just rounding a little curve, almost like a kind of stretched out U shape, just so that there's a little bit of extra depth and detail to those mushroom spots, as if they're kind of like giant sticky out mushroom spots. And that's me. I am gonna call it a day with that. Hopefully that was quite quick and quite simple. You can do any design you want. You could do flowers, you could do just plants and grasses, but I just love having a circle and then having all these foliage and details that come off and spills out of the circle. And it's just another fantastic way to get a sketchbook page filled, but we didn't have to fill the whole page. I think we will definitely return to this idea later in the series and do a few more circles, maybe try different materials and different subject matters. But you know me, I love a little mushroom and toadstool. I think the contrast between the green grasses and the red mushrooms is just perfect. And I hope that you give it a go. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you are enjoying the real-time paint-alongs more than the lots of quick sketchy ones like last week, then let me know too, and I will do more real-time paint-alongs. But for now, just have fun, chill, relax, and go create something magical.